So if you have questions that you don't want people to know that you're the one who asked them. If there's any questions for specific people, if you want a certain person to answer it, please go ahead and put that down there. Otherwise, we'll get started. Mr. King, you're on first.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Shaw, I appreciate it. And I just want to check, I know Mr. Falsgraf is here. He said hi to everybody. Are there any other board members present? If they want to comment on the chat so I can see you, or just zoom in, either way is fine. But if you make yourself known, I'll be sure to introduce you as well. And I appreciate Board President Mr. Falsgraf joining us. It's always good to have our board members see what's happening in the district so that they are continuously well informed. And I appreciate their support very much as we've gone through all of this. So I'm going to make some brief comments here, probably less than 5 minutes, just to give an overview of where we're at, and then I'll turn it over back to Ms. Shaw. So just a couple of things happening. First of all, I want to thank all of you parents. You've been extremely patient as we've gone through this, and we've asked you to be patient, and you've really done so. And so this is as we keep saying, unprecedented times. Things do change. Just to give you an idea of the organizations that we deal with, of course, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, and then as you move kind of down from there, we deal with the state. We have government orders that come from the governor's office, as well as the superintendent of public instruction for the state, Tony Thurman. And then as you move down from there to the county level, we deal with Los Angeles County of Education, the Office of Education on a weekly basis. We get updates and guidance from them, as well as the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, which issues mandates, protocols, and so on, which can also change quite quickly. We also have been getting updates recently from the American Association of Pediatrics. I know that there's parents on this Zoom presentation, even this discussion, that have also consulted with some of those resources and have shared similar updates that we get. We also get updates and guidance and information that's been redefined or better defined from us from the California School Board Association. We also get similar updates from ACSA, the Association of California School Administrators. And then we involve other folks as we move to our local level. We work very closely with our Teachers Association, the Acton Aguadose Teachers Association, and that is why we have Ms. Trustel here for this particular conversation, because it's primarily about instruction and the reopening of our schools and that sort of thing. And then we deal with the California School Employees Association, which is all of our non-teaching employees other than management. And then, of course, we are working with our parents. We've had several updates through the PTSO, PTO, boosters organizations. And then we also, of course, work closely with our Board of Education on informational updates and to get the authority and approval to move forward on those recommendations that are brought forward and discussed with the board. So I just wanted to give everybody an idea of the entities that we deal with, because there's so many pieces at play and a lot of spokes in the wheel. Some of those provide guidance, some are recommendations, some are mandates, and so forth. The last piece I want to just cover is that one of the questions we've been getting lately, and I know some of you are, while you're enrolled in our school district, are also looking into other avenues of education, including charter schools. And it's important to understand that and if you're familiar with our school district, of course, we authorize 12 charter school organizations. It's very important to understand that each one of those organizations must be in compliance with the county mandates and orders, as well as from the state, that we must be in compliance with. So we have begun to walk those sites and ensure that they're complying with the same mandates that we need to for the safety of staff and students. And that's very important to understand that, because one of the things that I was hearing from parents is that perhaps there'd be more flexibility in working with a charter school, and specifically in terms of the mask wearing. And there should not be. It should be the same across the board for Los Angeles County. So I just wanted to be real clear about that piece, and I'll turn it back over to Ms. Shaw. Again, I just want to thank everybody who's online here. We have, looks like 100 participants, and I think that's outstanding to have all of you here. So very much appreciate it. Again, thank you for your patience, and I'll turn it back over to Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. King. It's now time for our Deputy Superintendent, Ms. David, who's going to share with you our health and safety protocols for school reopening.
Okay, hello everyone. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to learn about this. Let me see if I can share my screen so you can see the document that I shared with the Board of Trustees. Okay, can you guys, Mr. King, can you just nod your head if you can see my screen? Perfect, okay, because I don't see your view. So I'll go through this document. It has several sections. This is something that we shared with our Board of Trustees for review last board meeting. It's broken up into several categories based on the information that we get from our County Office of Education and our Department of Public Health, and then of course combined with the executive orders from the state. So it's broken up into safety protocols that are in general. And then it continues with breaks and lunch, assemblies and performances, athletics, activities, and volunteers. And as you can see across the top, each section there is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. Depending which recovery plan you're looking at, I believe the state has 5. The information we're getting from LA County actually breaks it into 3. So currently we are in phase 3, or able to enter into phase 3 based on current information. So what we have in the way of general information is with respect to safety protocols, and I'm going to go down. You can see in this section, I think you can maybe see it's green. I'll just sort of read off of High Desert and then change for Meadowlark and for Vasquez. So phase 3, High Desert, what we envision is school sites will be able to reopen, and this is probably the, there are potentially going to be several options, but for on-site, we would have an A-B schedule, meaning that only certain numbers of students are on campus on any given day. And the next section will go into more about that with the actual instruction, but A-B schedules, so only approximately half of students are on schedule at any given time. We would also include symptom checking daily at home or school for students and staff. That is to be determined. We actually heard today from our county office that it is up to a district whether that'll be done at home or at the school site when students arrive, and that's just general symptom checking. If somebody becomes sick, we would actually check individuals at school, but it's most likely that we would have people self-monitor at home and then report any symptoms to the school or let us know that someone will not be coming to work or school. Physical distancing, we're referring to that social distancing or physical distancing of 6 feet is required at this point in time. And that's actually a requirement. Another thing that, as Mr. King noted, face masks are required. Face coverings of cloth are required. The county office and the state are providing masks to school districts and for teachers and for students and for all staff. We also will be ordering them, and based on the guidance that we have, they will be required for all individuals. There is an asterisk, which I'll show, it's down at the bottom of the document, which is available online. But the asterisk refers to face mask requirement accommodations are allowed for individuals with special needs or children under the age of 2. And that is based on the LA County protocols. Hand washing or sanitizing throughout the day is required at all school sites by all individuals. And they've clarified that hand washing does not necessarily have to be with special soap. It can just be plain soap. But we will have either hand sanitizer or soap available in every room. Modified paths of travel, again, you're probably used to that from being out in the supermarket where they have marks showing so that people don't pass by each other face to face, and that they'll have a route where everyone's traveling in one direction. Bus transportation will be available, but it will be modified to also maintain distancing. In phase 3, each of those things remains the same for each of the school sites. There really aren't any changes based on grade levels for that. If we go back to phase 2, you can see those things there, but it would actually, again, be very similar to what's in phase 3. When we progress at some point to phase 4, all restrictions would be removed, and we would go back to typical operations. Being a little more drilling down into what specific things look like, breaks and lunch. Again, I'm looking at this section here for phase 3. All sites would have staggered breaks and lunch to minimize the number of students that are in contact with each other or with staff, and maintaining that required physical distancing. So each site will work out schedules that will allow that. And each room, of course, will determine how many students can go in at any given time. Physical distancing for seating at meals. So meals may be either in the MPR or within classrooms. Each site will be working on that to determine how we can keep everybody safe and physically distanced, but still able to be together. Cleaning between meal sessions. So again, whether it's in the MPR or in the classroom, there will be staff to wipe down tables. People, that are already working here. As far as play, at Meadowlark, there's modified outside play. This is where it's a little bit different from one school to another. At middle school, there's often activities for ASB or different things that happen at breaks and lunch. Those are able to occur, but with the modified is to allow for physical distancing. And then at the high school, the same sorts of things, modified activities, and then for students who would be eligible for off-campus lunches, if that's allowed, that would be allowed at phase 3. At phase 4, all restrictions are removed. Moving down to assemblies and performances at phase 3, we would be able to allow those again, and as long as we can maintain physical distancing. So just the staff and the administrators would have to work to make sure that we can maintain 6 feet of space and that all health and safety protocols are adhered to. When we were in phase 2, we were only allowed to have online events, and when we go to phase 4, all restrictions will be removed. Athletics is something that I know that everybody's anxious about. Again, those sorts of things will be able to occur. Athletics, we typically only have PE at the elementary school, so social distancing is required for PE. At High Desert, we would have PE classes returning, and they can do activities that include individual conditioning or team sports that allow for the 6 feet of space, one to another. At the high school, which is where most of our athletics occur, same protocols. We can have small groups, no more than 10, that can maintain physical distancing, and the most recent information we got would require them to work in cohorts. So the cohorts of 10 always have to be together. They can't mix, and they have to maintain physical distancing throughout. Low-risk sports, again, those that are typically do not share equipment, things like track and field that are individual sports, Perhaps tennis, we're still waiting for information on that, but again, where they can still be 6 feet apart throughout. CIF is updating their communications, and we expect to have updated information from that soon. Activities in general, again, they're allowed to return based on the protocols allowing for social distancing. So depending on what the event is, if students and visitors can be separated with 6 feet and still maintaining the health and safety protocols of masks and ability to wash hands if necessary, those can return. In the green section, that's for our middle school. Outdoor science usually occurs at, I believe, 5th grade. If that is available and offered, that would be allowable if the district determines it's appropriate. And then middle school activities that are typical for the school, as long as they allow for physical distancing. Same thing for high school. The only thing that stands out typically in high school is that they often go to college visits. Those would be allowed again, as long as we can maintain distance on the buses and at the colleges. Next section is with respect to volunteer, which obviously is of great interest to everyone on, because we do value our volunteers enormously. As always, our volunteers are always pre-screened with respect to fingerprinting, but we would also now need to have pre-screening as far as the temperature checks and symptom checks, and parents would have to verify that they are physically safe. They're symptom-free from COVID-19, and then again, matched cohorts. So we would always have the same volunteer working with the same group of students. So those are the protocols for health and safety that I have to share with you at this point in time.
Thank you, Ms. David.
You're welcome.
I apologize, I was trying to write a chat message to someone. Unfortunately, our limit on the Zoom is 100 and it's been reached. So if you have someone, a friend or spouse trying to get in, they won't be able to join the meeting. So I apologize. But it is being recorded, so we'll have it available. So I apologize for that, but that's our limit on Zoom is 100 participants. Okay. Now, I'm going to hopefully share my screen. It's a first for me, and if any of you know me, I'm a little technically challenged. But Melissa Trussell and I are going to share this a little bit. In a minute, I'm going to show you something, and then she and I are going to talk a little bit about the instructional models. So first, I'd like to share with you the where to find the presentation that some of our awesome teachers did the other night at the board meeting. I won't go through the slides with you. I'm just going to show you where you can find it on the district website. And then we'll come back and we'll go through kind of the models that we're looking at and that the union and I will be discussing and negotiating to see which one we think is going to be best for our students and for our teachers. So let me share with you the district website and how to get to our presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, now can you see the district website? Okay, so if you log into the district website, this is what you'll see. Then you're going to scroll up just a little bit until you see on the right hand side you can see the little Antelope Valley, and you see the little antelope there. And you go to the left and you'll see right under where it says join us for informational Zoom meeting discussing reopening schools. And just go right down here to presentations and you'll see Rockstar Teachers. and click on there, and then you'll see the presentation. It's a Google Slides presentation that our teachers presented the other night at the board meeting. And it'll show you the instructional strategies that some of our teachers went through some training last week and the week before. And they're instructional strategies that they worked on they're called EDU protocols. And they are strategies that they are beginning to use that can be used with any of the instructional models that we may use when school resumes in the fall. So let me close out of there and come back. And speaking of models that we may use when we come back in the fall, we have the go-ahead from our board to look at with the union 3 models. And the models that we are currently considering are a hybrid model where kids would come to school part of the time and they would work at home part of the time. Another one is distance learning, where they would be working at home, mostly with, like a teacher would help them. They would have similar to how it was right now, only it would be much more structured, and the work that the kids would be doing would be the same type of work they would be doing at school, only they would be doing it at home with a teacher online, that type of thing. The third one we're looking at is like a more of a homeschool, where they would be at home, but the parent would be more in charge of working with a curriculum that's like a pre-purchased online program, where they would mostly work with the parent and then check in with the teacher perhaps once a week or something to see how things are going. So it's like a hybrid model, a distance learning model, and then perhaps like a homeschool model. So those are the 3, big picture models we're looking at, nothing more specific than that. Melissa, would you like to share anything what we're thinking at this point?
In reference to the EDU protocols, it's a framework for teachers to use to deliver instruction, and it allows students to individually work toward their instructional goals. It's not a curriculum or anything. We already have all of our adopted curriculum. So it just allows for students in the lower grades, we're going to begin to start using it, and then as they go through the grades, they'll be familiar with the frameworks and the pedagogy that supports this for their learning.
And we're able to use them all the way from TK through 12. Obviously, they're not going to look exactly the same because they would be primary when they're young, and as they get older, they're going to be, you like change the font and you change the pictures so they mature up and they look a little different, but they would be familiar with the same, they would be called the same thing, like the pages would be called the same. And I know there was some concern of parents at the board meeting that it was very technologically driven, like it was online, but there's also a way to do it on paper, so that if the kids didn't have access to the internet, or what if they're working from home, we do have a version up. So we're still looking to see what we can do for them. So we're not saying no, we just can't right now. We're still not able to do that. Give me 2 seconds while I find my next question. This one I think Ms. David kind of answered, but I'm sure she'll be happy to answer it again. Will masks be required during PE/physical play?
At this time, the best information we have is that masks are still required if children are outside and expected to be potentially in contact with one another for more than 15 minutes.
Okay. Will volunteers need to supply their own masks?
No. And there are several questions on here about, some about students, some about volunteers or parents. being able to provide their own masks. It is allowable to bring your own mask as long as it meets the criteria, cloth face covering. I did hear today that for people who can't wear a physical mask for a medical reason, they are allowed to wear a face shield that includes like a drape or a hood, preferably that would be you know, not tight, that's probably not the right word, but, you know, would touch the neck so that droplets couldn't get out. One of the trainings that we went to did clarify that the masks are actually to prevent infection of others, and the face shields are more to protect that person. So there's a concern that if you wear only a face shield without a drape, that droplets could escape onto others. So if we do have individuals, you know, adults or older students that cannot wear a mask, there is an option to use a face shield that has a drape, either by preference or by necessity. And those would be provided, the masks, for everyone. We will have extras available in the office for anyone who may arrive without one.
Okay. There's a question about what is AB schedules? How many days actually at school? I can't really answer that question specifically, but I can give you like a general idea about AB schedules. It's like, it could be like 2 days at school and 3 days at home, like a Monday, Tuesday at home and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm sorry, a Monday, Tuesday at school and a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at home. And other kids would be at home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then come to school Thursday, Friday. That's one example. Something like that, like 2 days at school and 3 days at home. But we don't know until we sit down and look at it and see how many kids could actually be in a classroom, and how many kids, because we, you know, with the social distancing, and how many kids are going to fit in the classroom, and what we work out with the teachers and how all that works. But it looks, an AB schedule is kind of a 2 day at school, 3 day at home in general. Not specific to us yet though.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll just add that Mr. Moore, our facilities supervisor, and I have gone out to sites and tried moving furniture around. So we're still seeing what the maximum number of students on campus in a classroom can be on a given day. But one of the things that I have heard, you know, shared that parents have concerns about is, would the AB schedule for it be the same for a family? And I would say that to the extent possible, certainly we're going to try and have families be on the same days. And a lot of that, as I mentioned with the bus transportation, is driven by our students who need to travel to and from school on a bus. So we'll have to try and get, you know, because students in the same family can sit on the same bus seat, but we have to maintain 6 feet of distance between the seats, even on a bus. So our transportation department is working to make sure that they're safe there too. And so we will be working to make sure, to the extent possible, there will be a priority on families going on the same days.
Okay, and then I have kind of a multi-step question, I'll say. How will the kids wear masks in the heat? And what precautions are we taking to prevent heat illnesses?
So I guess, so if it's exceptionally hot, students would only be able to be in the shade, or we would have to go onto an inclement weather schedule. Otherwise, you know, we encourage, as we do with any time it's hot, for students to drink water, play in the shade, you know, play quieter games. So again, our staff is trained to monitor students and work with them and look and see if somebody looks like they're getting warm. So we would go ahead and work with staff and encourage the kids to drink water.
Okay. Can students and volunteers wear disposable masks?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't understand the next question.
Yeah, I don't know if Mr. Sparks is on and can turn his microphone on. I don't know if that's something he wants to share, because I saw the same thing.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. What was the question?
You asked a question, which teachers?
Yeah, I was wondering which teachers were present during that survey that you were referencing. That's all.
I don't know what survey you mean.
I think he's talking about the presentation, Tim, that the teachers put on at the board meeting.
Or what teachers
Thank you, Mr. Brockway.
in the presentation?
And it might be that, and you could probably answer that anyhow, because we do have we have a parent who wanted to know which teachers presented to the board. So maybe if you answered that question, it'll answer Mr. Sparks' question as well.
I looked at the presentation and I didn't really see which teachers were responsible for that. So I was just wondering which teachers were giving their opinion.
The presentation was presented by Nicole Chun, Marilyn Alford, and Alexa Lepp.
Thank you.
I'm not sure about opinion. I mean, they presented the EDGE protocols that they participated in, but there wasn't a survey done. We haven't done a teacher survey yet from the district.
Thank you again.
Mm-hmm. Will all teachers use that model on the EDGE protocols handout? What does it mean that one of the goals for 5th through 8th is to lower student cognitive load?
I can speak to that if you want.
Okay, thank you.
So the district has committed to a professional development for teachers surrounded around EDGE protocols, which is the pedagogy of delivering instruction, and it's designed around reaching all learners. So hopefully, you know, we get that in the fall for our teachers. And as far as lowering the cognitive load goes, it's the framework that the students will be familiar with so that they don't have to learn how to learn, but they can actually learn what they're supposed to be learning. So it's basically something that everybody would be familiar with so that they're not learning what they're supposed to be doing, but they're actually engaging with the content. And that's what lowering the cognitive load means. Thank you.
Okay. Is the hybrid model the AB on-site schedule? Can you elaborate on a possible example, 2 days on-site, 3 days at home, or vice versa? I'm not sure what you mean by elaborate on the hybrid model.
I think you already answered that question, Kim. I think they were just looking for, is it potentially going to be 2 days of on-campus learning and potentially 3 days at home? I think they're just trying to get a feel for it.
Okay.
Correct.
I apologize. Some of them I think are just repeats because they were typing in as others from earlier, so I apologize.
I'd like to add something to that if I could, please.
Sure.
With each grade level span, whether it's 2 days or 3 days, what we're looking at is the instructional minutes. So each grade level span has a different set of instructional minutes where the student has to be engaged in work or interacting with the teacher.
You can have some.
I think that's important for parents to understand.
I'm not that hungry.
Okay. Who will be responsible to make sure kids and staff wear masks and distance if on campus? I do not see kids being compliant. That raises many issues.
Well, I guess I can take a stab at that question since it's related to masks. I mean, I guess the reality is that as a community, as a school community, we all need to be responsible. I mean, the expectation will be set. It's not something the district is choosing to do or not do. At this point, it is actually a mandate from Department of Public Health. So through this meeting, through communications with families in the district, staff in the district, we'll need to make sure that everybody is aware that it is an expectation from Department of Public Health. But beyond that, it's something that we're all doing to help keep each other safe. I think the message that we send to our families is really powerful. We can all do our part to say that as much as it's uncomfortable and unpleasant, that if we're choosing to go out in public, that we need to do our part to keep the people we care about safe. I think there was another question further down that I saw about, you know, we're different in Acton than the rest of LA County or something along those lines. Why can't we make our own rules? Unfortunately, as much as we'd like to, we are a part of LA County, and we're governed by the Los Angeles County Office of Education, has oversight of the district, and County of Public or Department of Public Health also provides those guidelines for us. So even though we may be a smaller area, we still have to comply with those as part of LA County. And again, we need to remember that even though we're small, throughout the day, you know, various people go to their jobs in LA or in other places. So again, I think it's the message that we're going to send. And we can all, if we notice someone taking their mask off or coming in without a mask, you know, primarily, obviously, it's district staff that will remind staff and students and visitors to wear a mask. If we see someone, we can gently hand them a mask and ask them to wear it and you know, comply with the regulations. So I think it's a shared responsibility with plenty of messaging ahead of time.
Our area is not like the rest of California. Why can we not make the decision locally? Very similar to what you just said about.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I was trying to like combine, because they actually they're related.
Yeah. And I have to say on Mr. King's behalf and our board's behalf that they have certainly gone to bat for us in trying to work with LACO, the Los Angeles County Office of Education, and push the limits on the fact that we're small and very unique, and trying to get permission to do some things that they still won't let us do. So I do have to say that for him. What parents, would parents be able to decide which of the three they want, or will it be determined by the district? Once we have those negotiated out and the plans in place, then the parents are going to be able to choose which option is going to work for their family. Now, as far as assigning the days or making sure those are worked out, like getting your kids on the same day and figuring all that out, once you pick what you want, then we'll have to be working to get kids placed, hopefully together, if that makes sense. But you'll have the option to choose which one of those programs you want, models you want. Is there a protocol procedure pertaining to if a number of students, staff, admin begin to test positive?
So we do have a registered nurse on staff for the district, Carrie Wright, and this, you know, obviously for COVID-19, it takes a special protocol. But anytime we do have something like a flu outbreak, we do monitor and report. So in the case of COVID-19, anytime we haven't had any cases yet within the district of students or staff that we're aware of. If we were to discover that someone was positive, we report it to Nurse Carrie, and she then reports to the Department of Public Health and asks for additional guidance. She would track and monitor the symptoms, and depending on what Department of Public Health has recommended, we believe that the process would be that they would begin contact tracing to the extent possible, and depending on the number, they would then give guidance on whether we would need to isolate a student or an entire school shut down.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little bit to that. So when we get these updates and these opportunities to participate in Zoom calls with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, for example, we have an opportunity to edit documents. And so 2 Tuesdays ago, I went down with nearly 80 superintendents from Los Angeles County for an in-person meeting to edit a lengthy document that was drafted by the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. There were 3 sections to that document. There was a 12-page section on the mandates and protocols, and we went page by page, line by line, to make our recommendations as educators as to where we thought we could improve upon that document. The second section of that document was approximately 6 pages in length and included sample letters to mail out to the community in the event of either one person being diagnosed with a positive or tested for a positive case of COVID-19 or more persons. And then the third section of that document we looked at was approximately 6 pages in length, and that clearly outlined and delineated the steps a local education agency would need to take in the event of someone in the community testing positive and who is either an employee or a student or a parent volunteer in connection with students at the school. So that document in its entirety has not been released yet, which is one of the issues that we run up against. And so we were told it would be released after we reviewed it that Tuesday, by the end of that week. Then it was the following week, then I personally called the Department of Health myself and was told it would be the beginning of this week. We've still not seen it. And this morning on our call with Los Angeles County Office of Education, we're told it's coming out shortly. That it would not be too much longer for that document to be released. But those are the kinds of issues.
Question: would all the teachers be required to do the same thing in the same grades? I'm not sure if you mean like if we pick the models, if they have to do the same model, or if you mean teach the same curriculum. Like we have one curriculum for the district, so they're all teaching the same curriculum. But
so last year when students like kindergarten and first grade, so kindergarten did really well on their packets. They had packets every day and everything was good. But then when you went to first grade, some of the teachers just gave them a page a day to do, and they didn't have very much to do. So I guess what I'm wondering is, if my grandson's now going into first grade, is he going to get stuck with a page a day, or is he going to actually get work to where he can advance? So that's my concern.
Okay. All right. Well, I think what happened this current year was more of emergency situation. This year coming up will be much more of a planned situation. We're going to work with the union, and they'll be much more organized, and there'll be guidelines more so what we'll be doing. And I think Melissa wants to make a comment.
Yes. Well, what we have learned recently is that in the upcoming school year, there's going to be more of an accountability piece in which, we have to take attendance and interact with students if we're doing a hybrid, or if they're at home a certain amount of time, we actually have to be interacting with them. So I think what you saw was we were in crisis, and that's the mode that we went into. We did the best we could. But in the fall, the accountability piece is written. It's going to be written into whatever the district decides to roll out.
Okay. The problem with packets is there is a lesson requiring collaboration. Those students with low bandwidth internet are not getting the same benefits with packets as those who can Zoom. How is the grading done in that case? Do you mean if the class is working on something, if they're collaborating together and some kids are doing packets and some are doing Zoom on the same project, or?
Yes. Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yes.
On the same project? Yeah,
yes.
Because that would make things very difficult if someone's on a packet, because that's very individualized as opposed to kids on Zoom can collaborate together.
Right.
Yeah, that's something that we can certainly talk about, but that's like what Melissa was saying. If they're in crisis and they're doing things that happened this school year, you probably won't see in the upcoming school year.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Are hotspot available to check out from the district to students who don't have internet access? Lynn.
There are some available at this point. You would need to communicate with your site administrator. First your teacher, of course, and then the teacher will communicate with the site administrator to see what we can do. There is some funding available, and there is some funding built into the budget to purchase hotspots as loaners.
Okay.
Ken, may I add something to that real quick?
Sure.
Just for those of you that don't know, mobile hotspots do run off of cell phone service. So if at your house you don't generally get cell phone service, a mobile hotspot may not actually help you, just so you're aware.
Someone's camera's up pointing at the ceiling. So,
you can't even hold it 5 seconds.
But my workday begins with a mandated temperature taking on me, filling out forms that go into HR, all those types of things. And just because I comply with those, well, it's a condition of my employment, so I can choose not to comply with those, and I can choose to go home until my leave is gone, and then I can choose to be unemployed. Now, the control that an employer has over an employee is, especially in a union environment, those are all things that are known and negotiated, and everybody accepts those conditions. Groups, I saw that question down there, and to be the lone maverick in that group is not a very defensible position. Now, some people say we're unique. I remember a joke when I was a kid, how do you sneak up on, how do you catch a unique rabbit? You sneak up on it. So we're not in that kind of business where we're kind of playing the cowboy game. But here's what we know. The conditions change. You're seeing on the countywide level, you're seeing restrictions put back in place because there appear to be spikes and everybody doing the exact same thing. So I think our teachers are pretty good at looking at individual kids and figuring out how to reach them and pacing kids and all those kinds of things. So our job as administration, and my job as holding Mr. King accountable, is to take a look at what those mandates might look like, and then taking them to the teacher and being respectful, professional, just saying, guys, this is the hand we're dealt, this is the curriculum. I think what Mr. Sells is saying at a level I can understand, she's not relaxing her expectations. She's going to deliver curriculum or learn goals. I think our teachers like to be measurable and report results that are positive. And so I don't see them relaxing and giving up. But they deserve the right to be able to know, number one, what the conditions are, and number two, agree to what they can deliver. And we are going to that point soon as somebody stabilizes the conditions that are coming down that way. We all know that education of the kids is one thing, but many households have been highly impacted to employability, child care, all those kinds of things. The district, by issuing that survey, is trying to look at. There were questions, if you prefer one model, that might suggest that ask you which days might work for you. I know in my workplace, people can call back, and HR is telling those people, you know, if you need some accommodations where some days work better for you than others, you want to tell if you have the time and stuff. Those are all things that get worked out amicably and professionally. So, again, I'm sorry we don't have all the answers, but I will say that I was very impressed in the middle of all this mess of trying to teach kids that the staff development piece that Mr. Sell was talking about was very impressive, and people are very excited about it. And but when it comes to the mask, who's going to enforce that? I mean, I got kids that can't get it, but you're not supposed to pay for the bathrooms, and we wear ourselves out on that. So a lot of that begins at home. But I'm interested in empowering our teachers to do the work that they've always done. They reach our kids. They put them through 13 years. We trust them. They're going to keep doing that, and I trust our principals supporting those people. So thanks for your time. But yeah, that's just a general overview coming from the common man and how I see it.
Thank you. We have a question here about why the meeting is limited to 100 participants. That's our limit on our Zoom account. We can't go higher, so I apologize for that. If we're happy to do another presentation if we need to, so, and it's also being recorded, so I apologize that there's a limit, but that's what our account is. So it wasn't that we wouldn't want more people on, so I apologize for that. Are we starting with phase 1 where everyone schools from home?
No, no, we were in phase 1 in March when we closed down. We actually are currently looking at phase 3 for reopening. As we all know, current conditions and reports from LA County in general and around the state show that conditions are increasingly, there are more cases, so conditions are increasing. At this point, we are still in phase 3, but we are prepared to scale back to phase 2 if necessary, or advance to phase 4 if we get the go-ahead for that. So at this point, we're looking at what would school look like for phase 3. But the reason we include all the phases is so that if conditions change, for example, if a particular school had a breakout, what would it look like at that school to return back, and what would the protocols be so that families know what would happen at that point in time. But we're looking at phase 3 currently.
Okay. Since our area is very low risk, why are we not looking at 5 days? Well, and I can answer that a little bit, and Lynn, if you need to piggyback on. Most of our classes or our school, oh, hold on, Melissa wants to go. You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I was waiting for somebody.
Oh, okay. I thought you were like wanting to talk.
My apologies.
No worries. We don't have the class size capacity, the rooms. Lynn and Ernesto went out to the classes and measured, and the most amount of seats that can fit in a classroom are 20, because we have to do the social distancing and keep kids 6 feet apart. So the largest class size we can have is 20 in a room at a time. And some of our classes obviously are larger than that. So to do 5 days a week we couldn't accommodate everyone that would
have. And I'll just piggyback on that, just to elaborate on that statement. And I don't know if Melissa will want to add anything to this. When we did that, we actually measured out, we took actual student desks, and using the requirement of 6 feet distance between students, we determined that in our classrooms, and they are, although they may be slightly different shapes, they are about the same size, we were able to get 20 desks in. But to even get 20 desks, the front of the front desk was maybe about 4 feet to the front chalkboard or smart board. And there was about 3 feet on either side, and the back of the chair was just enough to get out of the seat at the back wall. So it's very tight. There was no teacher desk in there. There was a teacher file cabinet, no teacher desk, and no bookshelves or anything to make it feel like a school environment. So even at 20, it's very cramped. We tried putting 30 in to see was there any possible way we could get a regular class in, and at that point putting 30 desks in, the physical distancing was impossible, and there was only 5 feet between the front and the back from student to student, and 4 feet between students. So that's why we have to look at those numbers and consider what we call the AB model, where only half the kids can go at a time.
I'm going to chime in for a minute too. There's 2 things that have to be completed, so to speak, before we, lay out the
Did you know
finalized
twice?
plan with specific details. One is the negotiations of the terms and conditions of employment with our Teachers Association, and the other is working with the board. So we've already worked with the board to a certain extent, and that extent was to obtain the scope and parameters and authority to negotiate, which you always get first before working with the group, and we have that. And so I'm very pleased with what the board has allowed us in terms of flexibility to come back with a viable recommendation to the board over the course of the summer. And of course, we want to do that as quickly as possible. I think everybody does. The second piece, of course, is the negotiations of those specific pieces. So having said that, it is possible that with potentially doing a secondary survey, specifically with the models that are laid out, those numbers could also help dictate what that looks like in terms of coming to school physically. So just for example, if kindergarten ended up with an average class size of 10 students per classroom because others were wanting to do homeschooling or 100% distance learning, it's possible that that could be a 5-day-a-week program. But again, going with my first comments, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves in terms of what we've negotiated and what's been approved by the Board of Education. So I'm just laying out potential scenarios that could take place based on interest being an impact as well.
Okay. If we have 3 models, if a student chooses a hybrid model, can they switch to homeschool or vice versa? Would they have the same teacher for all models? I don't think those things have actually been worked out yet, especially the part about teacher for all models. If you mean like the hybrid, if they were in school 2 days, then their distance learning teacher would be the same as the one in school. If we work that out, I would assume that that would be the same person. As far as switching between models throughout the year, we haven't really discussed that. I don't know that that would be in the best interest, but I don't know. We'd have to talk about that some more to see what that would look like. I can't say for certain either way. With school days being cut, our household works a lot and can't support our kids to be home so much. What accommodations will be in place to assist those that work a lot? Lynn, can you speak to the daycare issue, or we only have after school at this point?
No, Sunny Days is returned to the Acton campus and is actually already up and running. It is a private, it's not part of the district. They're our partner, and so it's a private pay childcare. I will say that they do have some accommodations available for families that qualify for certain sorts of support. The number for Sunny Days, I believe it's on the website, but they can also contact the district to get the contact information. Sunny Days is here each day. During the regular school year, when school was in typical session, it was just an after-school program, or actually it was after school including on minimum days, and also before school, which is why we made that change. So it's open from 6 a.m. until 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. And whenever kids are not in session, they are there and available. So if it's a typical day back in the old days and the child went all day, the child would go after school, and they can take the bus and be dropped off at the Acton campus until their parents pick them up to 6:30. On minimum days, they could also arrive at that time, and the cost is the same whether it's a minimum day or an extended day. And during breaks, they're available all day long for families.
Okay. We still have our teachers. The teachers that are listed on the PowerPoint were the teachers that were, that attended the EDUC protocols training. That isn't all the teachers in the district. Those are just the ones that went to the training. Is it a possibility to have students attend school 5 full days, or is that off the table? Okay, I think Mr. King answered that. It's, I suppose, a possibility depending on the number of students that we have enrolled and what we're able to work out with the teachers and how parents, how they end up signing up for our models. Would parents decide what days and their kids would be on site, or will that be assigned by the district? I think when we get to that point, you know, parents will have choices, and then it'll depend on once we start assigning based on interest, right? Like to get the classes evened out. So you'll have a choice, and you probably, you know, put first, second, third choice or whatever, and we'll try to get people what they'd like.
Also, part of that, and as David's spoken to this before as well, is it's somewhat dictated by transportation to a certain extent. And so we want to convenience families because those students live together, potentially to be on the same bus together and sitting near each other. And so then you can have 6-foot distancing on the bus between students that live in other homes. And by doing so, we get more students on the bus and maintain the 6-foot distancing. So we did discuss transportation in relation to that as well.
When will we know which option, distance learning, distance only or parent-led homeschool, will be adopted? Well, the union and I are going to start discussing as soon as possible, and hopefully in the next, I don't know, couple weeks, this July, we'll be getting that figured out. As soon as we know, we will let you know. So we weren't going to talk this summer, and now we are. So we were hoping we would know already, but they keep changing daily everything. So we'll get it to you as soon as we can. Why are not more options being discussed? Well, I would say that we have talked a lot of options, and we've kind of narrowed it down to these options. Can advancing the phases be adjusted within the guidelines immediately, or will there be a delay in changes?
The phases are defined by the Department of Public Health and executive orders from our governmental agencies. So we adjust them as quickly as we get information of changes from, you know, from our governing agencies.
Will an at-home only option be available? I would say that would be the distance learning option, and it potentially will be available if we are able to work that out, yes. I don't know the answer to this question. I'll ask it so people know, but and Mr. King might know a little bit more than me on this. Are we the same size as Leona Valley, or is Leona Valley smaller? Leona Valley is going back to school full time because of them being a small town.
Yeah, we did actually discuss that amongst the Antelope Valley superintendents, and that's exactly the case. There's enough space there to allow them to return 5 days a week, although the remaining schools in that district are not able to do so. So it's just the one school that's able to accommodate that. And it's much like our preschool, for example. We know what those numbers are, and we'll be able to accommodate our preschool with their regular schedule without altering it, because we can accommodate the numbers.
will basically be homeschooling our kids regardless of which model is adopted. And I can do the same thing through iLead, but they'll provide $1,800 semester outside physical activities. So what I really want to know is if our district will provide a similar allowance.
Hello, this is Ken. I'm going to jump in on that one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I wore myself out on the board meeting trying to figure out why some charters were enrolling kids who never went to school, who never did any work, and families were getting Disneyland passes, and we were being taken over court for it. That's why I came in on the board. And to think that we're just going to hand out money instead of putting a teacher in a classroom and having the auxiliary programs like the robotics, and I would suggest that anyone, if you're going to watch anything about this, watch the edu protocols presentation. That wasn't just somebody coming in selling us a package of goods. That was somebody saying, this is the equipment you have, these are the books you have, this is the curriculum you have, and these are the teachers you have. Open up to their ideas about how to reach individual students and mainstream them. And I am not going to sacrifice a district budget so somebody can go get a horse training lesson and a trip to Disneyland. I'm sorry, fire away on the chat, but I'm not buying that all day long. My beard has turned gray over charter schools and getting them in line, and I think the ones that we have are measurable. And I'm not going to turn my hair up pure gray trying to do the same thing twice. Thank you, Mr. Sell.
Can I also mention that when charters offer funds for with student attendance, it is to essentially provide the types of services or the types of books, materials, etc., that a school district will already be providing. So those funds are typically to provide the services for the student, not necessarily that it's an incentive. So I think a lot of parents may misunderstand that a charter is just giving away money. There are those charters that were giving away money, but that money is supposed to be used for materials and educational purposes. And so the district already provides that, and that is one of the main reasons why districts do not provide additional financial incentives for parents to attend public schools.
Thank you. Okay, I have a question, and I apologize if we didn't answer it earlier or if I missed someone else's question. It says, why are the questions with the daycare concern not being addressed? I thought that we answered it.
I think I may understand it. So there was a couple of questions on here, and I thought perhaps we addressed it, but just to clarify, it's an unfortunate situation, and our job is to educate children. And in doing so, the system we have in America does incidentally provide that childcare during the day for folks that choose to attend a public school and not homeschool their child. And so in this scenario, families are severely impacted in terms of childcare because of the mandates and protocols that we're being asked to adhere to. And that is an incidental negative ramification of all this, and we recognize that. Having said that, we do not have the capabilities nor the resources to provide childcare beyond the AM/PM piece, but it does sound like Sunny Days, from what Ms. David said, does. And so you certainly are free to reach out to that organization if you'd like more information on that. We can also get that for you, but I believe it's on our website as well.
Okay. who will be available? I'll make sure who will be available to speak with for individual questions that are not answered in this meeting? I think that myself and Ms. David and I think we're all available. So if you, I've written down your name, the person who emailed the question, so I can certainly give you a call tomorrow if you would like me to, and we can talk. Someone answered, okay. Mr. King, this one is specifically for you. Which model are the other superintendents leaning towards that have even more students than our district?
So the majority seem to be doing the three models that we've been discussing here. Some of the, a couple in our area in Antelope Valley are doing two of those models. Specifically, East Side School District is doing the hybrid model or blended model, along with a homeschooling option. But essentially, they're putting everybody into the blended or hybrid model where they go to school a couple of days a week and the remaining days are done through distance learning. And then you would have to opt in to the homeschooling option, but you really have to request that in that particular school district. So it varies district to district, but primarily districts are looking at those three models.
Okay, with the limited space in each classroom, how many students will be in each classroom because of social distancing?
So again, going back to what Ms. David shared about measuring those out, if you really take out the furniture, as she said, you took out the teacher desk, you took out the kidney tables, and you just use student desks, where we could do 20, but that really wasn't realistic because it didn't leave really any room for the teacher to walk around the classroom or the exterior of the classroom. So they reconfigured it more realistically to 16. 16 is really the maximum we can do with having the ability for the teacher to move around the classroom freely and have some workspace in the front of the room as well.
Okay. How will you keep student confidentiality for students who cannot wear a mask due to a mental or physical disability? As we know, kids are curious and those not wearing masks will be singled out.
I can speak to that, and Dr. Allison, if you're on the line, feel free to chime in as well. Students are often curious about things. They see students in wheelchairs, they see students with learning aids, they see students sometimes get pulled out of class to work with the same adult a couple times a week. And to be quite honest, students are, I don't know if it's innate, but they have a pretty understanding, compassionate side to them. And they may be curious and they may ask questions, but I think a teacher would address that in the same way they would with some of those other examples I mentioned, and do it in a, you know, with candor and respect for the student and maintain confidentiality.
Larry, Dr. Allison gave a very good answer to that question down below further in the comments. I have a student cognitively limited, and as a parent, I have to be able to, number one, consider their comfort in sending them to school, and number two, my responsibility to the rest of the community. And I think knowing what our services look like right now and how they're being delivered, I'm not going to go into that, but they are being delivered, and there are different methods to be used, and our child is engaged, I would say that. So again, I appreciate the teachers and the SPED people working to deliver what they can. Now, if I want to nitpick about the IEP and find a loophole that somebody's not catching, then I'm kind of missing the spirit of what this is really all about. But yeah, I have confidence in these people.
Thank you.
Correct. I don't know if there's much more we need to add to the conversation with what was already said, but you know, we do our best to make sure we're keeping the confidentiality of every student. So for students that are not wearing masks, in the event that they were not, that information is not then shared with the student body as far as those reasons.
Okay, why was the survey asking if we want 5-day half days because I have special needs child? That was just one of the options that we're looking at. We were trying to see what parents were interested in. So that doesn't mean that we were gonna necessarily offer that, or because your child has special needs that we were going to have all special needs students take that option. We were just looking to see what people were interested in.
Yeah, I hate to jump in all the time here, but
no, please.
Think about this. When Larry goes to a meeting with all these superintendents and they've got 3,000 kids and 40,000 kids and Long Beach Unified is there, we have to be able to tell the oversight agency, look, our community is a seat-based model. That's why people drop their kids off to school every day or put them on the bus. That's a captain obvious solution. So to say to people, do you prefer to teach your kids at home? Well, if they did that, they'd be doing that already. So part of this survey was to be able to give the board the ability to tell Larry, look, fight for what we have, because LACO has a responsibility, Los Angeles Office of Education has a responsibility not to collapse our funding source by making it impossible to keep our market share. And we do that by having competent teachers deliver education that benefits children measurably in a way that the parents want to keep sending their kid to our school. That is the bottom line. So when they ask you, do you want to consider these other things, and you say no, Larry can actually go to these people and say, hey, look, you are collapsing my district. There are going to be financial impacts, and those impacts are going to limit the quality of the education our children get at the base level, much less the auxiliary programs that we're able to offer, like arts, sciences, and sports. So a lot of that is a negotiation tool, and it's deeper. But I think everybody pretty much knew that the people that wanted to homeschool their kids were doing that already. The people that wanted to go to a charter were doing that already. And the people that choose our school were fortunate they do, but they were doing that already too.
Okay. At VHS, there is approximately 100 kids per grade level. How can AB schedule accommodate each grade class? Matt, you want to try to respond to that?
Yeah, so it's something that I'm currently looking at, and based currently on, we built a schedule as if next year was a regular school year, and the largest class size that we have is 35, and so based on that information, we can kind of surmise that we should have the ability to schedule students on the AB schedule. So some students on Monday, Tuesday, for example, and some students on a Thursday, Friday, for example, and be able to make sure that we fit within the currently selected classes. VHS and to some extent 7th and 8th grade at High Desert have a little bit more difficult of a time with this kind of situation because they don't see the same teacher all day long. And any number of combinations can occur within a grade level. You know, all 9th grade students are going to have English 9, but one student might have a 2-year algebra program, one student might have a geometry class, one student might have a regular algebra class. So because of these various combinations, it makes it very difficult to really look at it from a class size of, you know, there's 120 incoming freshmen versus there's only 100 10th grade students next year. We can't break it down the same way we would for like a 3rd grade or a 5th grade class.
And I'll just piggyback on that a little bit. The reason that Mr. Brock was able to look at some of those options, and this is a great question about the high school AB schedule, is because of the size of our district. So for some of my colleagues that have very large high schools, some of them are looking purely at advisory periods. And you'd really work only with the teacher online and have certain hours where by alphabet and grade level, you would be able to come in during certain hours on specific days for advisory periods. But I think we're going to be able to do better than that for our students, again, because of the size of our district. So there are a few things that we're able to have a little bit more flexibility on than some of the larger districts, but excellent question.
With only part of the Agua Dulce campus being utilized, could this provide additional classrooms for VHS students?
I would say that the answer to that is no, because we currently have that site leased out in a long-term lease agreement to iLead as part of their charter authorization and MOU for facilities.
Okay. What about our special needs students that don't do well with distance learning? I believe we're looking at having our special needs students attend school. I mean, that's what we're hoping that we can do, is have them attend school the majority of the time.
Right, I think following the social distance requirements and recommendations, we're trying to provide the instruction to meet student needs as best as possible. Guidelines that we're given.
I apologize, I'm reading through to try and find questions because people are making comments now, so give me just a second to find a question. Have you considered that there would be enough people that want the hybrid, that those that want all day could do it? Yes, yes, we're looking at that also. We understand that parents might want 5 full days, but that's not something that we can offer at this time because we can't fit all the kids back with the social distancing. So it's not something that we put on the survey because we can't offer it right now. Would Meadowlark students still get the extras like art, drama, and music?
Can I ask a clarifying question on the previous question?
Sure.
What I'm trying to get at is that if you did a survey and you found that 25% of the student body was not going to come back, period, because they won't wear masks, that means that you only have 75% of the students there available who may want to be there all day. So I'm wondering if you've considered whether you can do both to accommodate those parents who want students in class every day and allow those who refuse to come to school and have their kid in a mask or with other things and let them do their homeschooling or distant learning. That was the point of my question.
Yeah, and Sandy, I commented exactly on that. And so precisely what you just said was my comment maybe 35 and 40 minutes ago or so, but that's exactly correct. Depending on because we'll do a secondary survey, and I see some of the comments in the chat that now that you have more information about the restrictions and that sort of thing, the feedback would change. So give us a chance to get the models dialed in, and then we'll have criteria or specifics regarding each model laid out for you in the next survey. And you're exactly right. Based on those numbers, the configuration could absolutely change.
Would Meadowlark students still get the extras like art, drama, and music? We definitely plan on having that. It'll just depend on the model and what we're able to do, but we do plan on having that for Meadowlark.
Yeah, if I can just jump in, and just as a reminder, we recently updated and signed the memorandum of understanding with ASMO that is a great supporter of Meadowlark. So as you know, Ms. Shaw said, it actually, and you know, Mr. King noted, it really is dependent on how we can structure it to make sure that we have this, you know, the physical distancing required, but that is actually built into the budget to actually support our partnership with ASMO and other music opportunities for the district and arts.
And the school day, the start of school is August the 26th. Do we still plan on starting August 26th? Are we not able to use classrooms from the old Acton Elementary for certain grades, and that way it will put less kids in a classroom?
We are not.
How is having all of the kids in one sunny day care different from having them in a classroom? Is the daycare limited to the amount of students?
So yes, the daycare does have limitations. She currently has one classroom open. We would not, I don't think actually that all the parents in the district would want to have that option, although we can, you know, try and expand. Child cares are governed by a set of regulations and guidance, the same as a district is, but they have their own set. They do have to maintain the 6 feet. They are supposed to wear masks. And so if we had enough students interested, we would be able to open up a second classroom.
Will all teachers receive the EduProtocols training and be required to use that framework? We have teachers who may not adapt to it. Well, the goal is eventually to get all the teachers trained, but with, you know, but as far as everyone adapting to it, it's going to take time. It's certainly not something that everyone's going to start with on August the 26th, but we will be providing the training, and people will be working into that. So hopefully we get everybody trained and get them all to adopt it, because we certainly have some people that are fired up and ready to go. So hopefully it spreads.